What is up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are watching the brand new YouTube show, How to Get More Clients with Your Podcast, sponsored by our good friends at Capsho. Shout out to everybody at Capsho for putting on this YouTube channel effort. Very excited to be collaborating. Capsho is my number one go-to social media AI tool. I'm going to be diving in as I do more of these episodes and featuring some of my favorite aspects of the Capsho platform. So stay tuned. I'll be diving into that here in a moment. But first, let's talk about this brand new show we're kicking off here today with this episode. Very excited to be doing the show, How to Get More Clients with Your Podcast. This is a passion of mine. I have built my online business platform via podcasting, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to introduce myself a little bit. So again, my name is Adam Schaeuble, been a podcaster since 2015. I've got over 1,000 episodes total in my podcasting career, over multiple shows and multiple different niche categories. I've got over 1 million downloads total over multiple shows, multiple niche categories. Currently, I'm the host of Podcasting Business School. If you've never listened to Podcasting Business School, you'll probably want to start with episode number 483. So grab your phone and your favorite podcast listening app, scroll to Podcasting Business School, and download episode 483, 5 podcast growth strategies to help you double your podcast downloads. Who doesn't want that? So that is my main audio connection resource for you there. But who do I actually help? Who do I focus on helping with that show? And who am I going to focus on helping with this brand new YouTube show here on the Capsho platform? I focus on helping service providers learn how to leverage a podcast to build their online business platform and get more clients. And in this show, that's exactly what we're going to focus on, is getting you more clients via podcasting. I know that a lot of us, myself included, started podcasting with dreams of selling online courses, getting speaking gigs, getting clients, doing paid boot camps. And we start with our show, we put it out there. It's not growing like we thought it would. And we're definitely not getting clients. Like, they're not like beating down our door, wanting to buy our programs, products, and services like I thought they would. So I'm going to show you how to kind of hit the fast forward button. I spent a lot of time learning how to do all this. 2015, 2016, 2017, 3 years, I made a total of $37. And, that is something that I just like putting out there, because it was a long, hard road, and it is for many podcasters. All right. So with this show, I want to hit the fast forward button so that you can have, you can experience a little bit faster results compared to what I did back in the early days of my podcasting career. All right. So let's talk about this, the podcasting success timeline. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about leveraging organic discoverability. All right. And I'll get into that term here in a second, but if you are in this, what I call the post-launch frustration zone on this podcasting success timeline, today's episode is really going to help you out. So with this podcasting success timeline, this is a little framework that I put out there where people who haven't launched yet, they've been thinking about launching forever. I call those the podcrastinators. You're in the podcrastination zone. But most of you are in that post-launch frustration zone that I described a second ago, where you've launched and you're kind of excited about that. But then a couple of weeks down the road, usually by about episode 5 to 10, you're realizing this is a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. And I'm not famous yet. And I don't even have any underwear companies sponsoring my show. And it's, I'm not getting that ROI. And you've probably even thought about quitting already. So we're going to address that with growing your ideal fit listener base via organic discoverability. Because when I talk about podcast growth, obviously there's a direct correlation with client acquisition. The more ideal fit listeners we have, the more opportunities we have to transform those ideal fit listeners into ideal fit clients. All right. So hopefully with this episode, we're not talking about client conversion yet. Well, that'll come in a later episode. But with this one, it's attracting the ideal fit listener. Big deal. Now, this is a stat I like to put out there as well. 80% of podcasts get less than 1,000 downloads per episode. All right. 80%. That's a lot. And I know a lot of you get into podcasting, hearing people like Joe Rogan, the millions of downloads that he does. Amy Porterfield, millions of downloads. Michael Stelzner, millions of downloads. So we have all these podcasting heroes, and we hold ourselves in comparison to them. And that's not good, because we feel like, oh, why am I not doing millions of downloads? It seems like everybody else is doing millions of downloads around here. How come I'm not? I just like to throw this stat out there. 1,000 downloads per episode is a big deal. So, and the way this is measured is 30 days after an episode releases. So I put this episode out today via podcast audio, and we, in our podcast hosting platform, we see, it did 1,100 downloads 30 days later. That's where it's measured. So that's what we're talking about here. And 80% of podcasts do not eclipse that 1,000 download mark at the 30 days post-release from, when they originally put that content out. So this is a good goal to shoot for. All right. We've heard about 1,000 true fans, and we can definitely leverage the organic discoverability concepts I'm going to teach you here today to get you there. All right. So this is a powerful concept that, again, not many podcasters have mastered. I believe there are 3 buckets of podcast growth. There's the effort-based marketing. That's all the social media stuff that takes effort. That's guesting on other people's podcasts. That's posting on Instagram, doing live streaming, all of that effort-based marketing. Then there's paid advertising, Facebook, Instagram ads, podcast player app ads, placing paid ads in newsletters, things like that. But this third bucket that I call organic discoverability, to me, that's as powerful as the other 2 buckets combined. And the sad thing is, most podcasters aren't thinking about this at all. All right, so that's going to change for you today. Good thing you tuned into this podcast on the Capsho network here. And I think this is going to be a game changer for you. All right, so we're going to dive into the organic discoverability and all things that have to do with that. But briefly, one segment of this this YouTube show that we're doing here is I'm going to shout out a product feature of the month with Capsho, because obviously I'm a Capsho fan. I'm a full-on Capshovian, and one of my favorite parts is their LinkedIn newsletter feature. So all I do, I record audio, I load it in to Capsho, and all these different social media assets are kicked out. And one of my favorite aspects of that is the LinkedIn newsletter. So I'm not a huge fan of LinkedIn, but I know I need to be present there. And the one area where I am getting some traction is with my newsletter. And I put out 2 newsletters per week, and one of them is completely generated with the AI inside of Capsho, where I put the episode in, it creates a LinkedIn newsletter for me. I hardly have to change it at all, and it's written in my voice. And my clients cannot tell the difference. I will have people email me and go, "Hey, I just read your LinkedIn newsletter. Did you use AI for this? Because it really sounds like you actually wrote it." I go, 100% AI. And it does. It really reads like I type. And my Thursday newsletter, I type myself. I don't use AI. I don't use Capsho for that. But people cannot tell the difference, which is mind blowing. So shout out to Capsho. That is my product feature of the month, the LinkedIn newsletter feature inside of Capsho. Check it out. All right, let's dive into organic discoverability. Uh, organic discoverability is the podcast version of SEO. And I used to call it podcast SEO, but I want to get away from that because a lot of people confuse it with blog or website SEO or even YouTube SEO. It's different. All right. So, what we really want to focus on is inside the podcast player apps and what's happening inside that search bar. When our ideal listeners that should be listening to our show, that are great potential ideal clients, are showing up in Apple Podcasts, hitting that search bar, and they're searching a phrase. Like for my show, Podcasting Business School, a lot of people will search podcasting tips. I want to make sure I'm showing up and on that screen on their phone in one of the first 3 images, maybe the first 5 images that pops up, so that when their finger is hovering, they're going to click on my show and check it out and start downloading episodes. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to leverage organic discoverability to show up in that search bar. Now, the name of your podcast carries the most discoverability, SEO, organic discoverability power. So the name of your podcast. All right. And the first word in the name of your podcast has the most weight out of the entire name. So I'm going to give you a formula that I call the perfect podcast naming formula that has worked for myself. It's worked for my clients. I'm going to teach it to you right now. So when we organize or optimize for organic discoverability, there are, again, 3 zones. I already mentioned the podcast name and that art. That's the most important one. Then we have the podcast host description and we have episode titles, but we're going to have keywords in there. So maybe you've got a health show and weight loss is a really important keyword, or ketogenic diet, or intermittent fasting, or you've got a an investment strategy show and you're really big into cryptocurrency. So, crypto or cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, those are really important keywords for you. We need to come up with a keyword list of, like, if somebody is searching this, I really want my show to show up. All right. So that's where we start and we go, we need to get all these keywords and use them for the podcast name and on the art, the host description, the about this show section inside of wherever you host your show. Usually that's something like Libsyn or Buzzsprout. And then in your individual podcast episode titles. So the perfect podcast naming formula has 3 checkboxes. All right. The first one is, when I read the name of your podcast, I want to know exactly what the show is about. All right. So again, I read the name, I want to know exactly what it's about. Second thing, when I read the name, I want to know exactly who it's for, like who should be listening. And the third thing is I want at least 2 keywords. All right. At least 2 good keywords in the name of the podcast. All right. So let's have a talk here, Pod Pals. This is really important. Most podcasters do not follow this formula. I make a very sturdy earning each year helping people rebrand their podcast because they don't understand this and the power of this. Let me give you an example. I had a client that came to me a couple of years back and she needed some help with rebranding. And I don't even remember the name of her show. Most people create a name that they think is like cute, interesting. And if people find it, it will intrigue them. But the thing is, if you have this cute inside joke of a name that only you get the inside joke, nobody will find it. All right. So she had one of those types of names and we switched it with keywords. So we switched it to mental health for Christian women. That attracted her ideal fit client. And before she met me, she was doing about 40 downloads per episode. After we switched the name, rebranded, optimized with organic discoverability, she did over 100,000 downloads a year later. And that's a big deal, getting clients, gaining brand exposure, brand recognition. And it was happening because of this formula. So don't brush this off. Do not blow this off. If you're hearing crickets when you release a podcast episode, this could be a complete game changer for you. All right, so let's keep digging in. So these 3 check boxes, like if somebody hires me to help them launch a show, I'm consulting on a launch. We don't launch until we check every single one of these. And I am adamant about it because I've seen so many people screw it up and nobody, again, 50% of the equation is organic discoverability. We have paid marketing, we have effort-based marketing. Those two combined are equal to what you'll see from organic discoverability. And this is the set it and forget it. This is the thing that operates while you sleep. My ideal listeners are finding me around the clock without me paying anything because of this naming formula. My show is called Podcasting Business School. People search podcasting tips, podcasts about podcasting, business podcast. I show up for all 3 of those at the front of the line. All right. Those are my ideal listeners, and they're probably you. And that, hopefully you're listening to my show if you search on Apple Podcast or Spotify. So let's go over some examples. This is a little bit of a template. So the big keyword needs to be the first word. And then, so like big keyword tips for keyword, keyword, and keyword, or big keyword tips for X, Y, and Z. Example, I've got a second show that's a limited series podcast. This is the exact name of the show. And I use this formula: podcast monetization tips for online coaches, consultants, and service providers. We know exactly what it's about: podcast monetization. We know exactly who it's for: online coaches, consultants, and service providers. How many keywords? Podcast, monetization, online coaches, consultants, and service providers. So we got 5 right there. This limited series podcast, new people find this every single day. And I released 21 episodes over a year ago with no new episodes, no weekly episodes for this show. So this is an example. Like, this show gets more downloads than the average podcast that's trying to put out weekly content with a terrible name. And I put, 21 episodes worth of effort into this over a year ago. So that shows you the power, again, of using this formula. So maybe you've got a show, again, about weight loss, and you're really focused on coaching people. You want to get clients around intermittent fasting. Maybe you've got an online course about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting strategies for entrepreneurs and stay-at-home moms, or whatever the keyword, the who it's for, that's your ideal client. You just call out to them so that when they search intermittent fasting, you're pulling up because that's the first word. That's the most important keyword. We don't put like the word "the" or a number in front of that. That keyword needs to be the first word of the title. Very important. And they see, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, or ooh, I'm a busy entrepreneur, or ooh, I'm a whatever that you put in there. Like, you call out your ideal client in that title of the show, they're going to show up. All right. Now, we have to remember this. Very, very important. And hopefully this scares you a little bit, because I know some of you have podcasts out there and they are not named well, and you are not leveraging organic discoverability. And I guarantee you're doing less than 100 downloads per episode consistently. All right. Some of you have hundreds of episodes and you're doing less than 100 downloads per episode. Something is wrong. That is you. Don't fall into, oh, I just have a really small niche. No, that's something. You are not optimized for organic discoverability, and you need to unlock that cheat code. PodPals, that's exactly what it is. So remember this, and I want you to keep remembering this until you take action upon it. All right. The name of your podcast will either be the number one reason why your ideal potential clients start listening to your show, or the name of your podcast will be the number one reason why they can't find your show. You get to choose. PodPals, that is it for the first episode of this brand new YouTube show. Very excited about this. Super excited about our partnership with Capsho. Appreciate them for inviting me to be on this channel they've created here. If you guys want to try out Capsho, go to capsho.com. Save 20% off your first 3 months. OMG. I didn't even get that discount. When I first heard about it, I didn't even have my own discount. I had to pay full price, but I gladly do so. Use the code Adam. That's my first name. You're going to get 20% off for your first 3 months. Check out that LinkedIn newsletter feature. Oh my gosh. In addition to all the social media assets, I stopped hating going on social media because Capsho makes it so easy. I never sit and think, what should I post? I almost struggled like, ooh, I'm excited about several things that Capsho just created for me. Which one can I post first? And I have to hold myself back from posting too much, which is a total about face with how I felt about social media just 6 months ago before I found Capsho. So check them out, capsho.com. Code Adam, save 20% off for your first 3 months. Pod Pals, I appreciate you for being here with me to kick off the brand new show. Very excited about this. And as always, I'm going to send you out in the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode.